G'day guys, welcome to the Before You Bet racing preview for Golden Slipper Day at Rosehill on Saturday, March 21st. Of course, one of the biggest days in the Australian racing calendar with 5 Group 1s in total. We've got the Ranvet Stakes, the Ryder Stakes, the Rosehill Guineas, the Golden Slipper itself, and of course the Group 1, the Galaxy, to round out the 5 Group 1s. We'll be taking a look at all of the feature races today, going through my main chances in the race and where I think there's a little bit of value on the Betfair exchange. Of course, Betfair, great supporters of this show. They make it happen each and every week. So make sure if you are having a bet tomorrow in any of the 5 Group 1s or any race at all at Rosehill, you jump on the Betfair exchange, www.betfair.com.au. Let's get into the 5 Group 1s. The first of those is the Ranvet Stakes over 2,000 metres, where we have a really interesting runner here who comes up the $2.60 favourite in the form of Adabe. He's a UK galloper. He's trained by William Haggis. He makes his Australian debut here. Last time we saw this racehorse, he was over in Royal Ascot. He ran second on that occasion in the Champion Stakes over 2,000 metres, splitting the likes of Magical and Deirdre. That's elite Group 1 form. Anywhere in the world, that's as strong Group 1 form as you'll get. So certainly if he brings his best form to this race, he's the one to beat. What I do question about him is whether he's going to be ready to go first up from a spell here. He's sure to be staying for the Sydney Autumn Carnival. And we did see at the start of his preparation last time in, back in May, that he ran 4th in a field of 6 and then came out second up and bolted in over 2,000 metres at Royal Ascot. So I just query whether he's going to be sharp enough first up from a spell here. He has had 22 weeks off since that last run at Royal Ascot, so I think he might be better suited at second up from a spell, which his record suggests. He's won 3 of his 4 races second up. So at the current prices, I'm going to take him on, and I'm also going to take on Avilius, who's the second favourite for the race. I think the jury's somewhat out on Avilius this preparation. He started a well-backed favourite in the Group 1 Australian Cup at Flemington last start. I'm happy to concede that he wasn't given every chance on that occasion. It was certainly an enormous task from where he was rounding the turn. But I do think he certainly needs to produce his best if he's going to win this race. What he does have in his favour is coming back to Sydney. He's 3 out of 3 at Rosehill. 2 of those were Group 1 wins, and one of those was over this track and distance. So he certainly gets the grounds to show his best, but he needs to if he's going to win this race. I'm against both of those horses, and at the prices I'm in the camp of number 5, Very Elegant. I think she's returned in terrific order this preparation. I thought her first up run in the Apollo Stakes was terrific. I thought her second up run in the Chipping Norton behind Tia Cow Shark was even better, and she's building to peak here third up from a spell. She's actually undefeated third up from a spell. She's 3 from 3. She's 3 from 5 at the distance. And her only previous start at this track and distance was a win as well. James Mcdonald keeps the ride on her for Chris Waller. It'll be interesting to see what they do from barrier 8. We saw her ridden positively last start. So in a small tactical field with a wide draw, it'll certainly be an interesting viewing as to what she does early in the race. But at the prices I'm with her, she's currently around a $4.80 chance on the Betfair exchange. I think that's a good price compared to the other 2 who are slightly shorter. And as I said, I think Adabe might just be better suited second up from a spell. So the Ranvet Stakes, I'm in the camp of Very Elegant at about $4.80 on the Betfair exchange. Moving on to the second Group 1 of the day, it's the Ryder Stakes over 1,500 metres. And this is where we have Tia Cow Shark lining up as a short price favourite. He's currently around $2.24 on the Betfair exchange, and I've made him my best bet of the day. We saw him break through for his first Australian Group 1 win last start. He provides a very suitable race once again here, third up from a spell. He's had 2 starts this time in. Both have been Group 1 victories. Of course, he won a Group 1 first up in New Zealand. It does drop slightly from 1,600 metres to 1,500 metres, but I don't expect that to stop him. I think he looks the bet of the day, and I expect him to win again. One at a little bit of value is horse number 8, Brandenburg. He's a $21 chance here. He won the Hobartville Stakes first up from a spell and then ran third in the Ranvet Guineas last start. We've seen how strong that 3-year-old form has proven to be this season, and he's one of a few 3-year-olds in the race. He'll put himself up on speed from barrier 3. The rise in distance looks suitable for, the drop in distance looks suitable for him, and he looks the best roughie in the race to my eye at $21 rather than pushing on to the Rosehill Guineas. He instead comes against the older horses here in the Ryder Stakes. Other horses to consider, well, the Bostonian, he made it 6 wins from 7 starts, first up from a spell, taking out the Canterbury Stakes first up. It rises to 1,500 metres here, which is some sort of a query, but he is a winner over the mile in the past. So he is capable of doing it. It's just whether at Group 1 level he's better suited to a shorter trip rather than 1,500 metres. Super Seth, he's short in the market, or he's at least well found in the market. I've got a little bit of a query on him. He, of course, has had a setback since that last run where he went down in Melbourne in the Futurity Stakes. His best would be certainly good enough to win this race. He comes into this third up from a spell. He has trialled in Sydney since arriving, but he'll need to be at his absolute best here. And given he's had a setback since that last run, there is a question mark whether he will be at his best for this race. So Tia Shark is my best of the day in the Group 1 George Ryder Stakes over 1,500 metres. And if you're looking for a roughie, number 8 Brandenburg at $21 is the one that appeals to me. Moving on to the third Group 1 of the day, it's the Rosehill Guineas. This is over 2,000 metres for the 3-year-olds. We see Shadow Hero come here, and again, he looks quite clearly the horse to beat to my eye. He was the last start winner of the Ranvet Guineas over the mile. He was very impressive in doing so. I don't think the step up to 2,000 metres is going to alter his chances at all. We saw him third up from the spell last preparation. He won a Group 1 in the Spring Champion Stakes over this distance. So if he produces what he did last start in the Ranvet Guineas, I suspect he'll be the one to beat once again. Last preparation, when he did win the Spring Champion Stakes, he beat Castelvecchio by a length on that occasion. I think the step up to 2,000 metres is really going to help the chances of Castelvecchio here. Of course, we saw him put in a terrific performance over 2,000 metres in the Cox Plate last preparation. I said prior to last start that I thought he needed 2,000 metres and that 1,600 metres was going to be short of his best. So he makes that step up in trip now. I think we'll see a much better performance from him. But whether he's going well enough to kind of roll Shadow Hero and turn the tables after last start is an obvious query. Number 3, Warning. He gets Damien Oliver aboard. He draws the inside gate. He's another that's going to relish a step up to 2,000 metres. Of course, he was the winner of the VRC Derby over 2,500 metres last spring. Both of his starts this preparation have been good. Again, whether he can turn the tables on the likes of Shadow Hero remains to be seen. That's the main query in the race, but he certainly gets his chance from Barrier 1. We have seen in the past the format of the New Zealand Derby prove very strong in the Rosehill Guineas. Horses often come out of the 2,400 metres of the New Zealand Derby, drop back to the 2,000 metres of the Rosehill Guineas. It's been a successful formula in the past. The 2 Kiwi horses that come across this year are number 4 Sherwood Forest and number 5 Scorps. Sherwood Forest was the winner of the Derby last time out, and as I've mentioned, makes the drop back to 2,000 metres here. Wouldn't shock me at all to see them be very competitive. Normally, I'm not a big fan of dropping back from distances such as 2,400 to 2,000 metres. But as I said, in the past, it's been proven to be a successful recipe, dropping back in distance for this race in particular. So you always have to respect that Kiwi form when they come across here. And it certainly wouldn't shock anyone to see them run boldly. That's Sherwood Forest and Scorps. The X-Factor horse in the race is number 10, Chenier. His effort to run 4th in the Australian Guineas behind Alligator Blood and Superstorm last start was enormous. He nearly came down about 1,000 metres from home, so his effort to pick himself up and run 4th was tremendous. Third up from a long spell here, stepping up to 2,000 metres, both positives. Grand final stable from the Anthony Friedman yard, that's a positive. Though I would note that Damien Oliver does choose to ride the stablemate Warning rather than stick with Chenier, so that's some little query. But for me, Shadow Hero, he's the horse to beat once again. A lot of horses have done the Ranvet Guineas, Rosehill Guineas double, and I expect he will do the same. The main race of the day, the Group 1 Golden Slipper, 1,200 metres for the 2-year-olds, $3.5 million. There's a number of different form lines to consider here, and I encourage you to jump on beforeyoubet.com.au and find my runner-by-runner preview, which discusses the history of the last 10 winners. It's got the market there for you, and it's got my thoughts on every single runner in the race. So jump on beforeyoubet.com.au and you'll find the 2020 Golden Slipper preview and betting tips. Click on that one and it'll give you all the information you need to know. But we'll quickly go through how I've seen the race. As I mentioned, a number of different form lines can kind of be looked at when leading into this race. We saw Kiyomichi come through the Magic Night Stakes last year. Prior to that, we saw the Riesling Stakes, the Phillies, Estajab and She Will Reign. Before that, it was the Todman Stakes. Before that, again, it was the Riesling Stakes. Before that, it was the Todman Stakes. So there's a couple of familiar races that we can lean on here to give us somewhat of the guide, most notably the Riesling and the Todman Stakes. The winner of the Riesling Stakes this year was Dame Giselle. I think the Colts have got the measure over the Phillies this year, and the winner of the Todman Stakes was my top selection, which is number 3, Farnan. He's a Gay Waterhouse runner. Of course, Gay, she certainly knows how to win this race, and she certainly knows how to get them peaking on the right day. He's won 4 of his 5 career starts leading into the Golden Slipper. His only blip was up on the Gold Coast, but since then his 2 wins have been almost arrogant, very good indeed. We saw him get the better of Tagaloa last start in the Todman Stakes. He won that by 1.8 lengths. I think this is a very different race shape to that occasion. Tagaloa, he was having his first Sydney start. They took him back. It was somewhat of a barrier trial where they basically just let him settle, get around the Sydney way of going for the first time and finish off. Farnan, he drew barrier 1, went straight to the lead and never looked in doubt. This is a very different race complexion. Farnan's drawn out in barrier 14. He's going to have to work early to try and come across and sit on speed. There is a little bit of speed drawn inside him and outside him. Tagaloa, on the other hand, expect to see him much further forward in the run from barrier 6. He looks to get just about the run of the race somewhere further forward of midfield like we saw him in the Blue Diamond. He can certainly turn the tables, but I just thought I'd lean towards Farnan. As I said, I think Gay knows how to win this race. Barrier 14, I don't think that's any negative at all. If you look at the recent winners of this race, I think you'll find about 5 of the last 6 runners have started from double-figure barriers. So the wide draw is no concern to me. As I said, apart from that blip on the Gold Coast, his form looks very, very good for this race. Todman Stakes is a reliable form reference, and I think at around $6 on the exchange, he has to be a bet at that kind of price. Tagaloa, as I said, he gets everything in his favour to turn the tables. But I just think he's got a bit to do to turn the tables on Farnan. Outside of those two, Prague, he was the winner of, he was a little bit flat in the Skyline Stakes 2 starts ago, but he bounced back in style with the Pago Stakes victory last weekend. Comes into this on the 1 week backup. I think, again, he's similar to Farnan in that if you take out that run in the Skyline Stakes, I think his form looks very, very good for a race like this. But whether he's kind of up to the level of Farnan remains to be seen. He's a very smart colt though, and from everything Kieran Maher said, he's very confident that the 1 week backup is going to suit him. Gets a great run from barrier 7, he's certainly going to get his chance. I think the real smoky colt in the race is number 7, Mama Ragan, if that's how you say it, I'm not quite sure. He was the winner of the Skyline Stakes, and as I said, we saw Prague come out of that race and frank the form with victory in the Pago last weekend. For a horse to come out and win the Skyline Stakes as impressively as this horse did, certainly was very eye-catching. They don't normally come out and win that well on debut in a race of that quality, especially having to sit outside the leader before powering away. It's a little bit of an unreliable form reference to Skyline Stakes in terms of stepping into the slipper, especially the 3 weeks between runs. But he draws barrier 1, National Willer goes on, he'll be ridden positively, gets a good run probably behind the speed runners in the race, and I can see him measuring up at double-figure odds. In terms of the fillies, well, as I said, the winner of the Golden Gift was Dame Giselle, and she bounced back in the Riesling Stakes last start. We've seen that prove a reliable form reference in years gone past. I thought the better run in the race, though, was the runner-up, and that was number 10, See You Soon. These two fillies have had a really good rivalry over time. I think they've met on 3 or 4 occasions now, and they've kind of traded blows. But I thought See You Soon was the better run in the race. I think she's got more improvement to come second up from a spell, and I expect she will be able to turn the tables on Dame Giselle. However, what I will say about Dame Giselle is that she does represent the stables of Peter and Paul Snowden, who would have her absolutely 100% peaking for this race. The X Factor race in the horse has to be the horse that's just got to run. That's number 18, Minaj. Both of her runs have been down in Melbourne, and both have been absolutely sensational. She won by 5 lengths on debut at Bendigo. She then came to the Flemington Straight and won by 4.5 lengths over Montesira. The figures out of that race kind of don't quite measure up to the kind of figures we've seen from the best horses in this race, and typically Golden Slipper preparations don't begin with a win at Bendigo and then a win at Flemington down the straight. But look, she's untapped. She's only had the 2 career starts, and she can't have been any more impressive than what she has been in those 2 career starts. So certainly she's the X Factor horse in the race, and she's been backed accordingly since gaining a run due to scratchings. But to quickly sum up the Golden Slipper, look, you could throw a dart and come up with any horse here, but I have gone with the Colts this year. I've gone with Farnan on top. I think Tagaloa is the realistic danger to him, and the 2, or at least the one at a little bit of value, is number 7, Mama Ragan, at around $15 or $16. Finally, the final Group 1 on the day is the Group 1, the Galaxy over 1100 metres for the sprinters. An interesting sort of race here. We see the likes of Pierrata carrying top weight with 58 or 59 kilos. If you look at the weights for the recent winners of this race, you'll see they've either carried 55 or 51 kilos or somewhere in that range. I think the really interesting runner in the race, and again, this is probably the toughest race on the day with a full field, horses, you know, in these sort of handicaps, horses at the top of the weights and down to the weights that have proven form, and normally those horses down in the weights kind of have a little bit left to come. So I found it a very difficult race to assess. However, the one horse that I did settle on, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, is Kementari at $13. He went to stud. He's obviously a horse that was a Group 1 winner, but promised so much more and just couldn't manage to get his head in front. So they sent him to stud. He was a dud at stud. He was proven to be infertile. So they brought him back as a gelding, which is what everyone has been crying out for him to have done to him. So he comes 2 stone lighter. And I thought his trial was absolutely sensational leading into this. Look, it's not easy coming into this having gone to stud and then returned to the track as a gelding with a year between runs. But I thought his trial was enormous. James Mcdonald's booked a ride for Godolphin first up. He's always gone well first up in the past. He carries that weight of 55 kilos. Again, he's kind of a horse that's proven at Group 1 level, but isn't too harshly weighted in this race. And so I think at $13, he has to be a bet. He can put himself on speed. As I said, he's proven against some of the best horses